a market research director for Geopost France, partner of Speedy, responsible for market and consumer insights worldwide. Passionate about consumers and all the forces that shape their behaviors and attitudes, she is a part of a team of a research called eShopper Barometer. Today, she will be covering the topic, why is e-commerce more dynamic in the Balkans than in the rest of Europe? Let me hear some noise for Carmen Curio.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So, really thrilled to be with you here today for two reasons. First of all, I love sharing stories about consumer behavior. I think you already got that. Second one is that the Balkans have a really special place in my heart. My roots are actually not far away, just north of the Danube in Romania. So even though I live in France, I'm very much a Balkan girl in the soul. So here today with you to try and answer a simple question. Why is e-commerce more dynamic in the Balkans? And to do so, we will use info from our eShopper Barometer. What is it? Basically, it's a survey that Geopost has been running for 7 years now among e-shoppers all across Europe, 22 countries. You see them on screen, the red ones. Of course, Balkan countries in there, Romania, Bulgaria, Croatia, Slovenia, also Hungary. This survey basically addresses e-shoppers. E-shoppers, people who buy online, some of them on a daily basis, and who get parcels, at least one of them, in the 6 months prior to the survey. To our knowledge, this is the widest, largest e-commerce survey in Europe at least, and worldwide among the biggest ones. We had conversations last year with more than 24,000 e-shoppers all across Europe, and more specifically in the Balkans, we had discussions with more than 4,600 e-shoppers. So quite robust, if I may say so. Important to know, this survey is not about DPD, it's not about Speedy, it's not about Geopost, it's not about e-tailers even. It's just about e-shoppers, how they behave when they go online, what they buy, why they buy, how they buy, and what do they expect in the online experience. So no brands mentioned anywhere in the survey, just e-shoppers coming to us with their thoughts, expectations about e-commerce. Now, if I think back at the past 2-3 years of e-commerce, the one word I would use to qualify it, I would say it's really resilient. In COVID times, of course, we had more e-shoppers coming to the online space for the obvious reasons that we all know. And ever since, we lost e-shoppers along the way. Some went back to stores at the end of the lockdowns. Others, because of inflation, had to cut down really the spending, so there's less purchases overall and also less purchases online. So much so that now in Europe we have around 76% of consumers who buy online. And if I look at the Balkans, it's almost the same story, 75%. So you could say that probably, the maturity would be the same between the Balkans and the wider Europe. But when we look at the behavior of the consumers who remained in the e-commerce space, what we see at the European level is that basically their behaviors changed. COVID increased their frequency of purchase, and they started to basically buy online around 15% of all the goods that they were buying. And as you can see, this behavior did not go back. I mean, we are still at 15% and more of what people buy, they buy it online. Now, when I look at the Balkans, this is where we start to see some tiny differences. The share of online shopping in the Balkans is slightly below that of Europe, 13.4%. So you could easily argue that the Balkans are now at the same level of maturity as the wider Europe back in 2019, because the figures are really close. Lower maturity means higher momentum, for sure, because there's room to grow, progress to be made, and the catch-up effect that the Balkans are into really right now. So one reason why the momentum is higher in the Balkans is because we are in that catch-up effect compared to the wider Europe. When we look at what people buy online, in Europe, it has been a story of fashion, shoes, and beauty healthcare products for years now. This is still the case. Top 3 categories bought in Europe and in the Balkans: fashion, shoes, and beauty. The order may be a little different, but it's all about e-shoppers, young women, older women going online, also men, for sure, but buying mostly fashion and shoes. Now, if you look at wider Europe, you can also see that with COVID, we had, let's say, daily necessity products that came into the basket. So much so that medicine, groceries, fresh food are now part of the average European e-shopper lives online and basket. And this is a clear reason of the resilience of e-commerce. When you buy your daily goods online, you increase the frequency. And you will also tend to continue buying your shoes and your fashion items online with an increased frequency. And as you can see, Hungary is a good example of a country in the region that really taps into the new trends, because groceries are the 3rd most bought category in Hungary, clearly creating some dynamics and good momentum because of that increased frequency. Of course, the groceries, you do not buy them just twice a year, as you would, let's say, for a pair of sneakers. You buy them on a weekly basis. So another reason why we have strong momentum in the Balkans right now. The reason why e-commerce is so resilient throughout the world, in Europe and in the Balkans, is that basically from the very beginning, e-commerce was seen as a way for e-shoppers to save money. And this perception of e-shoppers in Europe only increased in very recent times, significantly. And of course, this comes at a perfect moment, because in the context of inflation all across the world, e-shoppers now tell us, 2/3 of them, that price is the most important driver for them to make purchase decisions. Therefore, any possibility for them to save money is more than welcome. And you can see that my Romanian fellow e-shoppers are really high in saying that price really matters when they go and purchase online. E-commerce always offered windows and possibilities for e-shoppers to make really good deals. There's the seasonal sales, then there's the loyalty schemes of many e-tailers, and in more recent times, a new habit that started to appear: buying secondhand on C2C platforms. And this is getting really, really popular across Europe. We have 72% of European e-shoppers who either buy or sell goods on C2C platforms. I will not name them, you know them probably better than me. One of them, the big one coming from the Baltics, directly from Lithuania, with a big impact all across Europe. We have, in terms of frequency, 12 purchases per year on average made on C2C platforms. So at least once per month, people go and buy something secondhand. But an average is an average, and you have lots of different realities behind it. So if we look in a more regional way, where do we find the champions of C2C e-commerce? Well, it's in Poland that we find them, 14 purchases per year. And in Poland, secondhand was not that popular just a few years ago. But with 2 years of double-digit inflation, of course, it opened the door to many, many purchases from Polish e-shoppers. Second comes France, with almost 14 purchases a year, for very different reasons. Inflation never got that high in France. But in France, we have this tradition of flea markets. It's really present. French people love to go on Sunday afternoons in the flea markets just to find the ideal, perfect object for the house, etc., etc. And the C2C platforms actually added a touch of modernity in this flea market world, putting it online and also taking away pain points like security of payment and transportation issues. So it did wonders in France, and in the Balkans, we can all see that the level is slightly lower. I think we are a fairly young audience today, but I think we all remember, the trauma of the 1990s, following, the fall of the Wall of Berlin and the economical turmoil in the region. For people, some people back in those days, purchasing secondhand was a matter of survival, so no glamour around it anyways. But we see that, with the younger generation, purchasing secondhand is getting trendier, even in the Balkans, in Eastern Europe, where it did not have positive connotations like for years. People come to terms with this buying secondhand, and the modernity of C2C platforms clearly adds momentum to that. But of course, if we talk about e-commerce and if we talk about the Balkans, no way on earth we will not mention cross-border. In the Balkans, we have one of the most fervent cross-border buyers across Europe. We have 74% of e-shoppers here who like to buy cross-border. And you see that the champions this time come from Slovenia and Croatia, much more than in the rest of Europe. Why? Because some of them think that they will find even better deals abroad, far, far away, eastern part of the world. And others simply need to get access to a wider offer than what they have locally. And when you look at where they buy, probably you know it better than me because you live it on a daily basis. Western European countries come first as, let's say, a sourcing region. Germany ranking, of course, high up. UK used to be #1, but with Brexit and all, the customs and additional taxes, of course, it had an impact. And then comes China. Interestingly, with purchases from China, we have seen, let's say, an erosion over the past years. It will be very interesting for me to monitor this in the coming years with the emergence of new platforms from the Far East that are even more price-driven and price-oriented than their traditional peers that we all know in Europe. But if I look at things the other way around, what would be the most interesting countries where would opportunities come from in terms of export? Well, there is a trend that we see. Basically, e-shoppers in the Balkans want and like to buy close by in countries of the region because for some there is a proximity in terms of language, because for others simply, the geographical proximity makes it that transportation will be more reassuring, shorter times, etc., etc. So obviously, if you think exporting from Romania, the obvious suspects will be Hungary and Bulgaria. When exporting from Bulgaria, the usual suspect will be Romania. For Hungary, it will be then Slovenia, Croatia. And once that window is open, clearly the wider Eastern European country circle is at hand. Czech Republic, Slovakia and Poland, and I would also put Austria in there. Of course, it's not Eastern Europe, it's Central Europe, to be fair, but there is an uptake and there is a demand even for Austrian e-shoppers to purchase abroad, and they look east because of all the reasons that I mentioned, for better deals, etc., etc. So another driver of momentum, the cross-border, let's say, propensity for e-shoppers to source themselves abroad. Quite good momentum still for e-commerce and positive things, but we also use the e-shopper barometer to monitor, let's say, threats. What is going on that could potentially, let's say, block the development of e-commerce in coming years. And interestingly, since 2019, we have seen that the perceived easiness of purchase online was going down. These are the European figures. You see, it's nothing dramatic, but there's a downward trend that is very clear. And if I look at the Balkans, of course, the figures are higher. So it seems to be easier to purchase in the Balkans, or at least the perception of e-shoppers is going that way. But still the same trend that the one we see in Europe. Now, why is this important? Price is one major driver of e-commerce, and coming next to it is convenience. People buy online because it saves time, and it saves money. And if purchasing online becomes complicated, then it may be a clear barrier to further development. So that is why we absolutely wanted to look into the reasons why e-shoppers think that it's more difficult or it takes them more effort to buy online these days. And interestingly enough, we realized that it's not about, let's say, the added value products or the bundle that e-tailers now offer, because now e-tailers will not just offer products, but also lots of services around. It's not about that. It's not necessarily about the added value services in terms of transportation, but it's all about the product. We tend sometimes to forget in our world that e-shoppers, when they purchase online, they are very interested in the product that they buy. And, you know, all the environment around it is great, there to offer a great experience. But if the product is not right, then we have an issue. And what we know, what we see, is that, for instance, e-shoppers tell us that one reason why they feel it takes an effort for them to purchase online is that the offer on some websites is not, let's say, wide enough. So you end up browsing, spending time on a website just to leave and go on another website to find the product that you need. And this, let's say, limited choice of products is voiced out especially by Romanian e-shoppers. Their fellow e-shoppers in Croatia will also tell us that they do not find the product that they want. Nowadays, people don't go online to buy a pair of sneakers size 37. They will go online to buy a specific brand, a specific model, a specific color, with shoelaces of a specific other color, all this size 37. This is the way they do it, and then it's either Nike or Adidas, whatever, but they want to have all the details. And if the specific product they look for is not on stock, it creates a friction, it creates an issue. And you can see that Croatian e-shoppers are very sensitive to that particular type of effort that they need to put. To loop the loop, once the product that you dream of is out of stock, then you need to look for something else. And this creates a trauma in the minds of some e-shoppers. We are all getting lazier and lazier in terms of effort that we're willing to put into something. Basically, what e-shoppers say is that when they do not find the product that they want, it's just like they were driving in the middle of nowhere with no GPS, so they do not know, should they turn right is on this side. Should they turn left? Left is on this side. Or what do they do? So Hungarian e-shoppers are really, really strong in voicing that particular issue out. They need to be accompanied. They need to have, let's say, decision-making processes that help them. They need to see the products with all their aspects, etc., because otherwise it will create a clear friction and unsatisfaction. On top of these, when the product issue is solved, then you may stumble upon unexpected things. Sometimes you may need to call the customer service. That is an unexpected step that you don't want in your experience. Sometimes you buy things online at 1 in the morning, so customer service is not exactly the persons you want to interact with at 1 in the morning. It creates an issue. On top, when you do not manage to get in touch with customer service, it is a very clear pain point. And also a more, let's say, trivial friction and pain point, slow upload of videos and pictures. I was just thinking that those days are behind us, but some e-shoppers, especially in Hungary, still tell us that this is a clear pain point that they are meeting. But of course, there's no compassion for such thing, for such technical issues, because we are now in the era of social commerce, social media, so no way on earth that they will go up for slow upload of pictures. And speaking about social media, of course, social media has a very important role to play actively in e-commerce. To go into that section, I will need your help. 3 logos on screen, you know them by heart: Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. What do you think is the preferred one for e-shoppers in Bulgaria? Who's voting for Facebook? Let's raise the hands. Okay. Anyone going for YouTube? Okay, no one. Instagram, maybe? Okay. But still, you were very many to raise the hand for Facebook, and you were right. Facebook is the most popular in Bulgaria with e-shoppers. And again, this is one tiny difference compared to the wider Europe. In Europe, Facebook is, let's say, on a downward trend, losing a bit momentum, but still very, very relevant in the Balkans and in the eastern part of Europe. Second question on which I need your help. In which country out of the 3 that you have on screen do you think e-shoppers buy the most directly on social media? Who goes for Romania? I'm biased, of course, so don't look at me. Who goes for Bulgaria? Okay. Anyone going for Slovenia? Okay. Well, I think it's a really tight match between Romania and Bulgaria, seeing the hands raised, and indeed it is. You see, there's just 1 point of a difference, 69 compared to 68%, but you know, 1 point is a point, and you can either win or lose Eurovision because of 1 point. So this one goes to Bulgaria, but beyond who's first, who's second, the one thing that I find really interesting here is the high percentages that we have. 69% of Bulgarian e-shoppers buying directly from social media. This is really, really high. How come? Well, in the eastern part of Europe, of course, e-commerce started to boom at the same time as smartphones and social media. So the 3 came all together, hand in hand, and the experience was kind of intertwined, intermingled. Compared to Western Europe, where people started to buy online on their desktop computers, and then social media came into the play. But, you know, it took some time for Western Europeans to go on social media, especially for buying purposes. So early adopters come from the Balkans on modern, let's say, things, and social media used to be very modern when it popped up. Of course, the use of social media comes really strong in pre- and post-purchase moments. And on all these metrics, you will see that the Balkans are clearly higher up compared to Europe. In pre-purchase, people look for inspiration. They look for recommendations on social media. And also, in the Balkans, after the purchase, they are more eager than in other countries to leave comments and feedback online. Therefore, of course, it's really important to monitor what is going on over there, because positive comments, all fine. It will create a good momentum. But negative comments and the negative buzz can really be a big threat to especially smaller sellers online. And in between comes the purchase itself. We've seen 69% of Bulgarians buy directly on social media, 68% of them in Romania. It's 2/3, basically, on average in the Balkans, compared to less than half of e-shoppers who do that in Europe. So a clear, let's say, source of momentum. Again, the Balkans stepping into the big trends of the moment, adding, let's say, dynamism to e-commerce in this part of the world. But still, there is room to grow. Clearly, the Balkans ahead of the rest of Europe. But if I think about the country that is the most developed one on this one, namely China, in China, we know that 97% of e-shoppers buy directly on social media. So the Balkans are somewhere in between, clearly higher than Europe, but still room to grow and to improve on this one. If we think about China and TikTok, of course, they made a big entrance all across Europe. We saw Facebook and YouTube still very relevant in this region, Instagram trying to catch up with everyone, but clearly a very, very strong momentum from TikTok on social media and the impact it has on e-shoppers. Live selling, all of that, it kind of takes away the frictions that we saw previously and clearly has a huge uptake with e-shoppers, especially in the Balkans. But we cannot talk about e-commerce without the delivery. I mean, there would be no e-commerce without the delivery stage. So again, on this one, the Balkans are really tapping into the new and modern trends. Of course, as in the rest of Europe, the preferred delivery place remains home because it's convenient. It's really convenient for someone to bring the things that you purchased at home. But this is losing, let's say, traction in terms of preference with e-shoppers. Why? Because we have a lot of e-shoppers who now are constantly on the move, who are also very price sensitive. So for all these reasons, they tend to go more for out-of-home solutions for which they are, let's say, in the driver's seat. They decide at what moment they will make the last meter of the last mile, and they will go and pick up their parcel themselves. In Europe, we see clearly that we have a huge momentum around parcel lockers and parcel shops. They are roughly at the same level of preference, but in the Balkans, there's more momentum around parcel lockers. Again, the modern thing has a higher uptake in the Balkans than in Western Europe. Early adopters as for social media around the parcel lockers, who are now the second preferred delivery place here. I know that here you have lots of figures, but you can see how diverse, let's say, the preferences are across Europe. In the Balkans, as I said, Hungary, Romania, we have lockers who are the second most preferred delivery place. In other parts of Europe, it's not the case. In Western Europe, we are still very much on parcel shops. And in other countries, like in the Netherlands, for instance, delivery of the parcel to a neighbor works really well because it's not a neighbor you hate or you love, it's just a neighbor and you will get your parcel from that person. In Anglo-Saxon countries, Germany, UK, Ireland, having your parcel delivered into a safe place that you indicate, put it on my doorstep, put it near the trash bin, works really well. They don't have any trust issues. But this does not work in the Balkans, in south of Europe, no way. And I let you make your minds on the reasons why it doesn't work, but works really well in Anglo-Saxon countries. So to make a long story short, basically, again, lockers, high momentum in the Balkans, and adding to the touch of modernity in the region. On top of delivery places, people expect other things around delivery. And basically, I think it's fair to say that e-shoppers expect everything, with probably the lowest price possible attached at the end, but they really expect to have this all these delivery options on their plate, and then they can pick and choose and personalize their delivery to their own needs for a specific purchase that they make. In Europe, two scenarios. We have the home delivery, but this home delivery, to be convenient, has to have added value services on it. I mean, you need to have a level of predictability. You want to know when your parcel will arrive. You want to have the clear slot, because even if you are at home, you are not at home to open the door 24 hours a day. Then if you know the slot, of course, the next step is to say, would be nice if I could choose the slot myself, because then it really fits into my agenda. On top, if your agenda changes, then you want to be able to reschedule the delivery of your parcel, because, again, it's to the delivery to fit in your life and not the other way around. It's not for the e-shopper to adapt to the delivery company, clearly. And for all of those e-shoppers who are on the move constantly, there's the out-of-home delivery that clearly we see here with the need for e-shoppers to have several delivery options at checkout. It's the second expectation. It's not an either-or story. You want to have both home delivery and out-of-home, and then you can pick and choose. And the higher momentum around out-of-home in the Balkans is also expressed here by the fact that having several delivery options is the first expectation of e-shoppers in the region at checkout. Of course, if it's delivered home, then e-shoppers in the Balkans also expect at least to know, if not to select, the slot of delivery and real-time info. I mean, you want to know where your parcel is at all times because you are expecting your perfect pair of sneakers of the specific brand, specific model, specific color, size 37. All of these experiences that e-shoppers had after COVID clearly forged their convictions and preferences. And in our world of the delivery, a preference will not be expressed by a big hug and a big love. It will be expressed by, let's say, a rejection of carriers with which you might have had negative experiences. And for that, e-shoppers definitely want to know, basically, who will deliver the parcel right at the moment of checkout. And this need is clearly higher in the Balkans, just to make sure that the carrier will be up to your expectations. Enough about the present. What about the future? I don't have a crystal ball, so I cannot tell you what e-commerce will look like tomorrow just by looking at that crystal ball I don't have. But Gen Z, if we look at them, they are the young ones, and probably the things that they are doing more than us, at least than me, I'm not a Gen Z for sure, clearly lead the way to what e-commerce will look like in a few years. And as you can see, they are all about purchasing and selling on C2C platforms. For them, for the young ones, it's a clear, let's say, opportunity to be independent. You sell, and then you have money in your digital wallet, and then you can rebuy, and it gets you a feeling of independence, even if your parents don't necessarily approve of what you buy and sell. So a really strong trend in there. And also shopping from social media directly. They are even higher than their Balkan peers on that one. What does this mean on, let's say, delivery and transportation? C2C goes hand in hand with out-of-home. Most of C2C parcels are delivered out of home, so I think I'm not taking a big risk in saying that out-of-home solutions will continue to rise in the Balkans and all across Europe. Also, the importance of the brand, clearly stated by Gen Z, and on top of that, a touch of sustainability that is added. It's coming slowly but surely to Eastern Europe. It's really already very strong in Western parts of Europe, but the Gen Z, 2/3 of them already say in the Balkans that they are more likely to choose a website that offers them, let's say, sustainable delivery solutions. So these were the things I wanted to share with you today. I'm getting at the end of my presentation. More than happy to continue discussing. I will be at the Speedy booth later on. And if you want to have more info on e-shoppers' behaviors in Europe, do not hesitate to flash out the QR code. Thank you so much.